Hello out there, and quick look today at the most recent release in the Kershaw Natrix line of knives. And what we have in front of us is the 7007CF, so we do have a really attractive knife in front of us because we have this carbon fiber handle scale, an overlay I guess, on top of the G10 handle scale. And I gotta tell you though, the G10 by itself is a very nice color, and having this carbon fiber over it just makes for a very classy looking piece. So visually speaking, there's definitely a lot of appeal here. But for me, the most appeal was that this is the first of the Natrix line to make that transition to the KVT ball bearing manual action. And so that's something the entire line is moving towards. All the new releases, the D2 copper one, the bare knuckle, the XL version, those will all be manual from what I understand. And then eventually the older versions, the assisted ones that are out now, will be going away, and those versions will be making the transition to manual as well. So if you are interested in something like this, you know, the earlier versions of the knife, probably find them at a pretty good discount right now. So take a look at that. But for my purposes, I'm definitely more interested in the manual one, and that's why I decided to pick this one up ultimately, was that I wanted to get it in hand. And just because I knew I was going to be getting the D2 copper version and also the bare knuckle later in the year, I didn't even handle this one at Blade Show. I didn't have any interest in it because I wanted the other two, but lo and behold, this one gets released and I want to try out that manual action myself, and here we are. And I got to tell you guys, if you like the look of the Natrix, which I really do, you know, the lines of the knife, just the bones of the knife are just excellent. If you like the look of it, you're going to really like this. I do. I'm not a big fan of carbon fiber in general when it comes to just like overlays and, you know, the glossiness of this like more budgety kind of carbon fiber, but it adds a whole lot to the knife just in terms of looks. So yeah, visually speaking, it is a home run. But the whole knife and the line so far has not been a home run in terms of execution for me. And that was sort of a bit of an issue when I talked about it in my first video on the original Natrix. And I'll link to that down below. But yeah, I just thought that for how good the structure, the bones are of the knife, and how much hype this model had when it first came out, that they sort of just missed the mark. You know, it should have been a home run, and they should have just put a whole lot more into executing this on a really, really high level. You know, some of the issues that I had, I didn't think the action on the assisted opening was as snappy as it should have been. It just didn't feel that good. It was really sharp in hand ergonomically. I heard some people having some problems with the actual the stop pin just not being sturdy. So there were some construction issues, and I read a lot of posts about how some of the blades were warped, and there were just inconsistencies coming from the factory. And I'm not sure if that's the case again, but I do have one issue that I am going to bring up with the fit and finish of this knife. Overall, though, there are some things that were done to make this knife a little bit better than its predecessor, and certainly the action is a big part of that, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I am just going to focus on those changes for the duration of this video. You know, so if you're interested in the spec and just a review overall, for the most part, this is going to match the rest of the Natrix, but you can see I am already starting to get in focus the difference in the jimping. And let's take a look. So here is the new jimping. You can see how deep that is, just very nice. It grips the thumb really well. Get excellent purchase in hand with that. Now, the previous Natrix models had good jimping too, but it's not nearly as deep. And I mean, it worked, it was functional, but it's just a little bit of an upgrade, an extra step to just make that deeper, more functional. So I definitely appreciate that on this newer version. Also, I will say, from my memory, this is a little bit less sharp in hand. So maybe it's machined just a little bit better. When I have these two knives in hand next to each other and I squeeze really hard, the hot spots pop out more on the original version. And yeah, that was one of the issues I had with the first one, was that the G10, the edges of it are very thin, and they still are, and maybe they're machined just a little bit better, or maybe it's just my particular one, but you can see there's no like extra chamfering in some of the spots down here, and so you just have this very thin and sharp transition, you know, down here where you have that extra that extra part of the edge, it works out just fine. But yeah, there's some sharp spots here, and then up top as well, if you're bearing down, it's a little bit sharp. So what I will say is that taking apart this knife is very easy. It's very simple. I'll put a picture in right here so you can see what it looks like disassembled. So if you wanted to, you could take this apart and try to sand it down and round those edges a little bit, and probably in 15-20 minutes get rid of that entire issue. So certainly not a deal breaker, but still, still something that is a little bit of an issue, especially if you wanted to use this as more of a work knife, which you certainly could, but a little bit sharp. The big thing though, let's talk about the action. KVT ball bearings. The action on this knife is good. It's what I wanted it to be, and that is the biggest upgrade. Pretty darn smooth. It closes well. So yeah, I do like it. It's snappy. It is exactly what I expected the upgrade to ball bearings to be. So great job there. The lockup is excellent. So yeah, we do have no real issues with the action, save one sort of. Not really action related, but sort of tied into it. It's the detent, and you can see right there. And I don't think this is nitpicky. I mean, this is a legitimate gripe. But I guess the detent ball isn't big enough or something, but it's not, locking in the way that it should, so it shakes when it's closed. Now, I cannot shake this knife open, let me be clear about that. So it isn't a functional issue, and the knife still flies open nicely, but you can feel it. I mean, I'm doing that with the flipper. But again, once you push hard enough to break that detent, the knife is going to fly open just fine. So functionally, I don't believe this is going to hinder performance in any way, but yeah, it's just sort of a bummer. And I was going to hold off on posting this video until I was able to get feedback from more people about this, but I just haven't come across many people who have this knife yet. And they've told me, the ones that I have come across have told me they don't have this issue, so maybe this is just mine. Maybe it's a fit and finish thing, or just an inconsistency coming from the factory. I don't know. So if you do get this knife, you do experience this, or if you don't, definitely let me know down below, so it's something that we can all see, if this is a widespread occurrence or just something that happened with my particular knife. But it's a pet peeve, something I don't want to see, something that makes me like the knife just a little bit less. But now that I said that, let me tell you, I like the knife. I like it. I like it more than the Natrix. I bought this knife thinking I would probably end up selling it or trading it or doing something else with it. And actually, guys, I think I'm going to keep this one. I like it enough. I like it enough to keep it. And knowing that, the other versions of the Natrix that I get will be different from this. I have a spot in my collection to have this one here permanently, and that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, I like it enough to keep it. And even though it does have those still minor issues, and it's still not the home run that I want it to be, it's definitely not a 10 out of 10. It's better. It's a better move for the Natrix line than the assisted version was. It cleans up a little bit. It does things a little bit better. Not quite where I want it to be though. So hopefully when we see the bare knuckle later on in the year, the Natrix that's in copper in the next couple months, we'll get those improvements on a more significant level. That's what I'm expecting. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting those knives and having a whole lot more to talk about when it comes to the Natrix. So if I sort of skimped on the details, I meant to today. I wasn't trying to do a full review with this one. And I will end up, I think, doing like a playlist and an overview of the entire line once everything comes out. So if you're interested in the model, definitely stay tuned, because there will be a whole lot more coming with these knives as they are released. All right, guys? So any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. But I'll talk with you soon. Take care and have a good one.